So today we will be discussing the Elder Futhark alphabet. It's the oldest Norse alphabet. There's also a younger version called Younger Futhark, which consists of 16 runes as opposed to the Elder Futhark, which consists of 24 runes. The Younger Futhark is almost identical in symbolism, the 16 runes, to the Elder Futhark, just some of them look a bit differently. And now I'm gonna go into some basic history. I don't want to bore you with too much history, but I think we have to mention at least a few basic things about the history of the runes and what the word rune actually means. So in Old Norse, the word runar means secret consultation. In Irish and Gaelic, rune translates as mysterious secret. And in Proto-Germanic, runen is to whisper. So you can see that it's a really mysterious name, rune or runes. And from what we know today, the runes come from the ancient European cultures. It's mainly the Germanic culture, the Anglo-Saxon, also the Norse tribes. But most historians agree that it developed from an ancient Etruscan alphabet, therefore ancient Italian alphabet. I think, and many people agree, many historians agree that the runes are much older. And it's no coincidence that they can be seen, for example, in the emerald tablets of Thoth, which I personally find very fascinating. And also, if you are familiar with the work of Maria Gimbutas, the historian and author, you may notice that many of the ancient Bronze Age symbols bear some similarity to the runes as well. So the runes are probably much more ancient. As for the meanings of the runes, they were derived from various ancient rune poems. These were the Anglo-Saxon rune poems, the Norse rune poems, and the Icelandic ones. Just to clear up what the poetic Edda and prose Edda difference is, because many people confuse it. The Norse rune poems are called Poetic Edda, and the Icelandic ones Prose Edda, or also Snorra Edda, after the author Snorri Sturluson. So that's just for the basic meanings behind these symbols. And I need to mention, of course, also that besides the alphabet, the runes have been used as symbols for divination and magic. And that's what we will be discussing today, mainly the divination and manifestation with the runes. So here, I'm going to go a little bit into the primordial origins of Norse runes, which is an even deeper history. And here we can see the six-pointed star. On the left, you can see the vertical version, and on the right, the horizontal one. Either is fine, and this is basically the mother rune, I would say. In the Younger Futhark, it's represented by rune Hagalas, which is quite interesting. But this six-pointed star is one of the oldest symbols, and in many cultures, it represented the world tree or tree of life. I like to call it world tree of life because it's both the tree of life and this complexity of all the dimensions. So we could say world tree of life. And in the Norse culture, this was the Yggdrasil. And many of you may be familiar with the story how the runes were brought to men, that god Odin hung upside down on the Yggdrasil, and he beheld the runes in the well of wisdom, and he grasped them, and he suddenly knew all the meanings, and he brought it to humanity. But in reference to Yggdrasil, there's another story, and that's the three giantesses, which are called Norns. And these three giantesses with the runes, and they actually use them to set destinies within these dimensions of the Yggdrasil. So that's another interesting story behind the the tree of life in reference to the runes. And here we can see why the sixfold pattern is so important, because all the runes of the Elder Futhark can be derived from this pattern. And here we can see not only the six-pointed star, but also the hexagon. And in 3D, it looks like a cube. But we can see that all the runes fit into this pattern, which is quite fascinating in my opinion. And this sixfold pattern, just to show you a little bit, is the key to matter. I mean, that's the shape that this world consists of. As you can see on the picture above, the protons and neutrons of the atoms, they bond in the sixfold pattern. And below you can see the molecular structures. This is the water, frozen water molecules that really bond in this sixfold pattern. And it's in all kinds of molecular structures. I'm not going to go into that too much. I think that would be for the sacred geometry webinar, which I'm also planning. And here you can see the sixfold pattern in the DNA. There's also pentagons, like pentagonal patterns in the DNA. But again, that's not the topic of today's webinar. So here we can see the flower of life. This is probably the most famous, or one of the most famous sacred geometry symbols. And we can see that it fits perfectly into the flower of life. The hexagon, the six-pointed star, and the cube. And here we can see all the runes in the flower of life. So just as they can be derived from the six-pointed star, here we can see that they are also in the flower of life, all of them. Here we can see the first group, here the second group. And now we get to the manifestation and divination with the runes, which is the main thing of today. So I think many people already know that runes can be bought as these little stones or little wooden, tools for fortune telling, or some people will advise you to make your own. I think that's the best way. Because really, like, if you think about it, if you use something for divination, it's good to put your own energy into it. So I always recommend, to collect pebbles or shells, or, chestnuts. Chestnuts are great because they're more or less the same. So you don't get, to remember each shape of the rune, and you can fool your mind more when you work with it. And chestnuts, you can draw the runes on this part that is a bit rough. Or, shells are also great, or any kind of stone, crystal, pebble, or pieces of wood, little sticks. The Germanic tribes, they used sticks. They threw sticks as a runic divination. But this is like this is what most people know, that you can use these stones or rune stones, or even cards. What is not so known is that runes are naturally all around us. And that's something that I wanted to pinpoint, because it can be just as simple as you going for a walk with a question in your mind, and suddenly you will receive guidance from the runes. You will receive spontaneous divination in nature. So if you go for a walk to a park or to the forest, or anywhere where you see some trees and plants, or even meadows and fields, because runes, believe it or not, they also hide in stalks, in field and in grass. They're just everywhere. So if you go for a walk into nature with a specific question, and you are aware of the runes and their symbolism, you will begin to see the right runes, and they will begin to complete messages and guidance for you. So here we can see that many trees and branches form these two runes, algis. This is the algis rune. Here you can see it here. here and here. And then the Fehu rune, which you can see in these 3 instances. It's quite interesting because these 2 runes are also connected to the symbolism of the tree of life and to nature deities. So it makes perfect sense that they are very visible in trees. I will show you more examples. Here we can see more runes. Again, if you are familiar with the runes, you will see them better. I'm not sure if now, if you're not so familiar with the symbolism, if you will really see them in the pictures. But I hope you do, at least some of them. On the top, we can see Berkano, Kenas, Gebo, and Manas. Then we can see Thurisas, Vunio, another Thurisas, then a Raidho, Urus, and this in the stone is Kenas. Then there's a little stone in shape of rune Ingvas, and again 2 branches that form Kenas, and then in 3 branches there's a perfect rune Odala. So these are just some examples of where you can see the runes in nature and where you can receive the spontaneous divination. Here are some more examples. On the top, on the left, you can see rune Manas, a perfect rune Manas made of grass stalks. This was taken just on a walk, and I just noticed that these grass stalks, they just made this perfect Manas. It was quite amazing to me. And then you can see tree roots coming up in shape of rune Ehvas. Then this is a tree bark on the top right. It's a tree bark that forms rune Odala. And then we can see Lagus, Urus, Gebo, Ansus in stone. Then there's Isa and Kenas on the bottom, on the left, which was a special message for me because I'm Eva Kenas, so it's like my 2 runes. So this was taken during a special walk. And then you can see rune Ehvas and again Ehvas in some random stalks in the field. And now we will go to runic manifestation. So I just listed a few laws to ensure that we don't create black instead of white magic. I use these laws just to make sure I don't create bad karma, because one never knows when you manifest and you are not careful, you may actually go against some principles. So I always make sure to bear these in mind. And the basic ones are the cause and effect, which is quite clear. It's the what goes around comes around. It's the principle that whatever we send out bounces back to us. Then the other one is made happen only if it's for the benefit of everyone involved, which I like to say because then you make sure you don't create bad karma during manifestation. As I said, you never know if it can influence somebody else if you manifest something. And then the law of that we are co-creating in the created world. So this makes us more grounded, and it makes us realize that we have to work in the boundaries of this world. Because just to give an example, if someone wished to get rid of all trees in the world, it wouldn't be, thank God, it wouldn't be possible, because you know the world already has trees and he cannot just erase trees. So just to make sure that you are co-creating in the created world and you don't harm anybody and anything in the process. So these are just the basic laws that I had to talk about a little bit. And now we will go into the manifestation techniques. We can work with the runes for the purpose of manifestation in many ways. The most obvious ones are, of course, to draw the runes or visualize them or create tokens, such as these. You can see I'm wearing one. You know, you can wear tokens. You can also create your own tokens, like this little rune Fehu that you see here. It's a clipping from a branch, and I have it as a token because I found it during a special moment. So it's the most powerful thing if you create your own tokens from random things you find that remind you of a rune, of a certain rune. You can also chant the runes. So, you know, you chant the names, or there are many ways. Again, I discuss this in more detail in my book. So if you're interested, you can get my book anywhere on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. It's available online. Here are also some runes I created as decorations at my home. So these are just branches from special trees that mean something to us. And I bound them together and hung them up on the wall. So this is another way to manifest what you like. This is rune algis on top, a rune of protection. So this is how I manifest protection at our home, to shield it from harm. It's also a rune of divine purpose and divine guidance. So if you wish to manifest that in your space, it's great to have it at home. You can also paint it, you know, you can draw it. There are so many ways to attract the runes into your life. And below you can see rune Gebo, which is considered the gift from God. It's a rune of union, and it's also a divine protection. But I will be discussing the individual runes and their symbolism tomorrow. Okay, and these are the runic postures. So another great way of manifesting the runic power in your life is to perform them with your body, literally, like runic yoga. As you can see here, our bodies are capable of standing in the power of each rune. And I think in my experience, it's best to combine all these methods. So if you wish to manifest with the runes, it's the best to do both the runic postures and chant the runes while you're doing it, chant the names. And also it's good to paint them, visualize them, and just be aware of them in your life. So it's best to combine it. Here is a picture of my book if you guys want to check it out, because I have much more detail of everything there is to know about the runes. And each chapter is about a certain rune, and I also discuss sacred geometry and the runes and these unique things that you can't find in other books.